Hello, and welcome to our weekly LinkedIn Live leadership series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and the founder and CEO of E equals Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices from various generations, industries, and backgrounds. A team's job is to really deliver business results. The role of the leader is to empower, inspire, and enable the people and team to deliver those results. And there's actually a repeatable formula to drive that success. It's the E3 leadership code: express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. However, how each leader approaches this and really applies this leadership code is unique because there's no one way to show up. And what we want to do is showcase all of these diverse voices of leadership. And as we meet each leader, we uncover what drives them. We explore their unique leadership style, their core values, and their experience, which have really shaped their approach. And it's all about being adaptable in diverse situations. So before we get started, let's absolutely make this interactive. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will be looking for those and we will answer as many questions as we can. So, with that, let's get started because I am so excited to welcome Brian Alementi, a master of elevating mindsets and inspiring personal and professional growth. Brian is not only a TEDx speaker, but also the visionary CEO of Alementi Elevates. I had the pleasure of meeting Brian at Disrupt HR in Reno, where his energy and his message truly captivated the audience. With over 30 years of experience, including a significant tenure at Farmers Insurance in training and development, Brian has honed his skills in uplifting and transforming teams. His speaking engagements, which span from corporate events to notable conferences, consistently leave participants inspired and eager to harness their full potential. Brian, I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much. That was the quick intro. What I'd love for you to do is really introduce yourself to the audience. Let them know what's your journey. How did you get here? Who are you?
Well, good morning, Kathy. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. And secondly, that was a heck of an introduction.
You've done a
Nice
lot. It's
work.
easy to make those introductions when you've done so much.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm just going to record that and put that every time I go onto a stage or into a training. That was incredible. Thank you so much for having me. Well, my journey is, when you reach a certain point in your life, and the bio that you were very kind to share gets to get lengthy, and you look back and go, okay, I've done this, and I've helped a lot of people, and I've been inspired by a lot of people. So I spent a lot of time, as you said, in the corporate world, and always seeming in learning and development. I did some different stints throughout my tenure, but learning and development, that's kind of my bread and butter. That's what I love to do. And we talked about sharing passions, and we both shared a stage out in Reno and sharing our passions that way too. So my journey is, I'm at a certain point in my life that I would be remiss if I don't explore doing what I love to do every day. And I inspire people to do that, even if it's a little bit. I know you can't all the time do 100% what you would love to do every single day. But if you can put a little bit of your passion into what you do, no matter if you're a leader of many or a leader of yourself, if you can inject that passion into yourself, you're going to be happier. The people around you will be happier. And life is too darn short not to be
Mm,
happy and enjoy what you love to do. So that's a little bit about me.
excellent. And it's funny because that is the passion. You and I shared that the first moment we met, it was like right off the bat, like hitting it off, and just you use the words inspiring and enabling and transforming teams, and that's what we love to do.
Yeah.
How would you describe your leadership style? Like, how do you show up?
I've been very fortunate to be part of many teams as a non-leader and been asked to be a leader of teams too. So I take those experiences. My dad, I was just sharing this with a group this week, actually. I said, when you have the opportunity to be a leader, and my dad reminded me of this, be the type of leader you wish you had when you weren't the leader. So
Mm,
when I had the opportunity and the honor to be in a leadership role, I had that in the back of my mind. Okay, I had some leaders that weren't so inspiring, and that's a nice way of putting it. So now how can I show up to those that I have the very fortunate pleasure and honor to lead and inspire? So that's what's in the back of my, I have a lot of little quips in the back of my mind. My grandfather would tell things, my dad and people would tell me certain things, but I digest those that resonate with me. And that's one thing that resonates with me is be the type of person, be the type of leader you wish you had when you weren't that person or weren't that leader. So I'm always, one of my models, and we can get into that if you'd like, but I'm always about a positive approach because life is too short. We're all going to get knocked down. We're all going to get hit with tragedies, but that's just a part of life. But how can we address it? How can we react? That's up to us. The tragedy is going to come, and as a leader, things are going to be thrown at us, and things are going to be thrown at everybody. But how can we react, adjust, and then inspire the team? So that mine is all about positivity and inspiration. And I know that's not always the flavor for everybody, but that's my approach. And I'd be wrong in saying that that's not so.
Yeah, but I think it's important. And even if I think it's an important approach, quite honestly, right? You can have a realistic point of view, but that positivity, we choose how we want to react to the things that
Yeah,
are thrown at us, right? We're not, we don't have to be the victim of something. If we don't like something, we can choose how we want to
right.
react to it, right? So,
Yes.
talk a little bit about your model that you're talking about of bringing that positivity.
Well, I've stolen. I'm a good thief, so I steal ideas, and I think whether we choose to admit to it or not, and I'm just talking for myself, I've been fortunate to have great leaders, great people that have inspired me, and whether I directly take what they say, but I remember how they make me feel. So I've compiled a model together, and I've said this many times. I don't care if you're leading a team of 5,000, a team of five, or just leading yourself. And I think because we're all leaders, I say leading with purpose. I've put together things that really helped me in leadership, things that have helped me as being an individual contributor that had great leadership. And I put a model together with 6 things. And 6 may be too much, maybe too little, but if it was more than 6, I wouldn't be able to remember it all. So that's part of the reason. But it's easy. PG3. So there's 3 P's and there's 3 G's. And again, it's adaptable. It doesn't, I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what level of leader you are, or if you're still an individual contributor with great leaders. I think as a contributor, you have the obligation to help your leader get better too, as vice versa. So the first one is positivity, we talked about. The second is passion. And we can talk more about passion. What are you doing every single day in your job or helping others get better? And the third is perspective. And that comes with a little bit of, okay, here's what I've got. And I say, one of the secrets of perspective is if you truly want to be successful, if you truly want to win, the perspective is you already are. You're already winning. You're here. You have the ability to do what you like to do, to help others do what you like to do. So those are the 3 P's: positivity, passion, and perspective. And the G's starts with generosity.
Mm.
And I grew up a very poor person, and not a pity party, but I moved around a lot and didn't have a lot of things. And we talked before the show. Now that I have a couple of things, I want to hold on to them. I'm a semi hoarder, but generosity was, we had a game growing up, was we'd give away fake money. So it was, okay, we won the lottery. And I remember this being a kid. Okay, we won the lottery. What are we going to do with our money? Well, we're going to give grandma, we're going to buy her a new Lark so she can drive around town with the Lark. I don't remember Larks. Oh, we'd give grandpa this. And so generosity comes in many forms. And as a leader, your generosity doesn't mean to give money. I mean, if you want to donate to a cause, that's one thing. But generosity to a person, to a leader, is your time, is your smile, is your energy. So generosity is the first G. The second G is gratitude. And I started something I might have stolen. I don't remember, but I remember starting about 10 years, called Thank You Thursdays. And it was
Mm.
just an idea. Okay, this is my day. I should be thanking somebody and showing my gratitude every single day, but I'm going to make a point of it every Thursday to pick somebody out that I lead or pick somebody out that influenced me and thank them, whether it's publicly, because some of the people I had a fortunate to lead didn't want to be thank me in private. So then it's a thank you in private, but some liked it. Hey, just if you can say thank you, that's great in public. I would take that too. But gratitude is the second G, and the third G is grace.
Mm.
And we talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. And I'm not going to shatter any IQ tests for intelligence, but emotional intelligence, I try to hold my weight. And one of the things that I love to do is grace giving others grace. And I say walk a mile in somebody's shoes. And that's one of the things that I maybe overused, but I think it's underused. Walking, we see people that are less fortunate. We see people that might be having a tough time, especially if you're a leader. That's on you to find out why. Find out if you can help them by just asking, how are you doing? Might help them get to that next level. And the second thing on that grace, that last G of the PG3 model, is cutting yourself a little grace, a little
Mm.
bit of slack. That's not always easy. And I'm a self-proclaimed perfectionist, which is I'm trying to break myself of that and sometimes live in the real world, but cut myself a little bit of slack. When I'm cutting others some grace or showing them some grace, I got to remember, okay, you're doing the best you can. And the secret to winning is knowing that you already are. We're all winning here, regardless of how many people you lead or if you're an individual contributor.
I love that. And the all of them, the 3 Ps, the 3 Gs all stand out for me. And the one, the grace, when you said it, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. That's what my dad taught me. And I grew up and I've written things about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to walk around in his moccasins. So I would do it literally.
Yeah.
But that changed my entire perspective on life. And he was always asking, well, you don't know what's going on. That person that just cut you off,
Yes.
you don't know what happened. And do you need to really get upset with them? Like, what's it going to solve?
Right.
And it just brings your own anger down a little bit. Have you ever heard the story by Stephen Covey where he talks about being on a train and a subway train in the
No,
morning on a Sunday morning?
no. What is it?
So he's on this train and a subway on New York City, quiet actually on Sunday mornings. This gentleman gets on with 2 young kids and they're running across the train and they're making lots of noise. They're on the poles and, everyone else is just being very quiet, enjoying the Sunday morning. And he's getting irritated. He's watching everyone else get irritated. And finally, he approaches the man and says, listen, sir, if you don't mind, do you think you could rein your kids in? We're just all trying to enjoy the morning. And he said, I really wish I could. I just don't know how to console them. We just left the hospital and they lost their mother.
Oh
So
my
we're
God.
all dealing with it.
Wow.
And all of a sudden Stephen Covey talks and he's just like, talk about a gut punch, right? Like we don't know what else is going on in other people's lives.
Right. 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 Yeah. It's cutting some. I love that story. First of all, thank you. I'm gonna. Oh,
You can
Steve.
use that one.
I'm gonna use that one. Even if it's in my own mind replaying. Okay. Yes.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I love that, and it's so true. It really is. We don't know what's behind that facade. We don't know what's behind that anger. We do not know. And I thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at that one, it's the perspective as well, right?
Yeah.
So you take the grace, you take the perspective, and really be able to show up and help others and see what I call it the iceberg, what's below the iceberg, the line. We don't
Yes.
know what else is going on.
Yes, yes.
So
It's so interesting, and not to get off on a tangent. You says perspective, and something I share, and I'm such an advocate. Ever since my son is autistic, and a neurodiverse learning environment. When I was in the corporate world, we just started talking about an iceberg. We just started the tip of the iceberg of adapting learning to those that are neurodiverse, and we had never heard of anything like this 20 years ago. This, and shame on us for, in a learning and development where we never, and it was little things like, how are we approaching the learning, how are we approaching the style of learning, because you're not always going to get an eye contact from a lot of people. And sometimes I would throw, because of the way people learn and because of the way people interact, I've got to put my perspective into how I share my message. And little things like different early, there was some things about people that are colorblind and cannot see colors. How are we putting the slides together? How are we adapting how we share our message to those that aren't receiving what we think they're receiving, the way we would think they're receiving it? So that's the way I put my perspective hat on too, is a lot of, okay, I've got to realize not everybody's like Brian, and
yep.
then thank God. But that would be a weird, really weird, weird world. But that perspective is a big P for me.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that we talk a lot about when trying to drive change and with people and engagement, so often we live by the golden rule that says treat other people the way you want to be treated. Fundamentally, I'm all in, right? It means that you should be treating everyone with dignity and respect, But in reality, I always say you need to go that one step further and treat people the way they want to be treated, right? Because each of us are different, each of us learn different. I have a nephew that's autistic as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And we all have something. We all show up differently, right? And it's so important. We get so much out of other people when we can help them show up in their best way, right?
Yes, I love that. Somebody corrected me in a class I was doing, the golden rule, and they said, no, now it's the platinum rule. How do
Yep.
they read it? And I tucked that in the back of my mind, Susan. Thanks for the reminder.
Excellent. Brian, we actually have a question coming in from Ralph. And he says, how do you overcome those days when maybe things don't go the way you expected and it feels like it might be time to throw in the towel?
So I have something that I talk about. Thank you for the question, Ralph. I have something that I talk about quite frequently, and I might have said it on stage in Reno when we were there, but it's in one. I talk three different pillars that I talk about, three different talks, and one of them is really the reminder that we get old too quick and smart too late. And my grandfather told me that, so that's tucked in the back of my mind. So it's a reminder that every day is a blessing. We all are losing friends and family too soon. And I don't care. My grandfather would have been 110, and that's too soon. I want him back. So the things when I want to throw in the towel, I remember here, I'm here earning the privilege of being here, earning the privilege of helping and being inspired by people. So when I want to throw in the towel, okay, I'm here and I'm living, and I have a family and friends, and life isn't rainbows and unicorns every single day, and we all realize that. But I also talk about earning it. I'm trying to earn my privilege of being here and helping others and just living life. So when I want to throw in the towel, I remember that's something when my grandfather said, old too quick and smart too late. Just get a little bit smarter, quicker, and realize what you have.
Yeah, I love it. Now, question. Did you grow up with this positivity or was it just something you learned over time? Is it really just your grandfather constantly, saying the little nuggets?
There are little nuggets. He was the quip master, and I had to learn what quip was, but little sayings. I have been very fortunate to have a lot of accolades growing up. Positive energy coming to me. Accolades might be the wrong word. Uh, I was a very hyper child. I was a very not the not nicest, meaning I was so hyper, tantrums and throwing all that kind of stuff. My grandfather used to call me Testarossa Diablo, so the redheaded devil. Sometimes I'd run around and so, but I like to draw. So Brian's being calm. He likes to draw, so let him be calm. And so let's give him some accolades and so on and so forth. Then I like to dance, and then I like to do these types of. So I would get accolades and positive encouragement, probably just to settle me down as a young kid. But then that carried on. I said, hey, I like that positive energy coming towards me, so I'm going to continue to be as positive and best as I can to everybody. So that it really, you get what you give. So I was given a lot of positive energy from my grandparents, from my family, from my friends, and I'm very thankful for that. So that helped with my positivity, because I know it feels really good, whether it's from a leader, whether it's from a coworker, whether getting that positive, nice job, Brian, or you did that really well. So, I want to give back and say that to others and so on. So I grew up getting a lot of strokes, I think just to calm me down, but that it was embedded into my brain.
So you do a lot of public speaking and you're in front of a lot of teams helping, provide that inspiration. Do you have people that come up to you and say, everything goes the wrong way for me and they just they can only see the negative in things?
I have. So it was about a year ago, and I remember it distinctly. It was in January of last year, and somebody did come up to me. It doesn't happen very often, but somebody did come up to me and was very forthright, was saying I appreciate everything that you're saying and so on, and however it just doesn't work. What you're saying just doesn't work because I'm still in a funk. I still. So we had a conversation, and again, I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not trained as a licensed psychologist, but what I can do is share my experience and some of the inspiration that has been given to me. So I did say, what do you like to do? So we talked a little bit about that, and I said, can you incorporate that every day, even a little bit? and you can't quit your job and become a and share your passion like in my situation, but can you share a little bit what you like to do every single day? Try that. And other public speakers or other therapists or whomever I've seen on stage say the 1% rule. If you can do 1% for yourself every day, that 1% builds and builds and builds. The momentum, it's tough. That first step is
Yep.
tough. But once you get that first step, that second step, that third step, now the momentum is it's building. Now you're getting into that groove, and hopefully that groove stays. But you get thrown off track. We all get thrown off track. But that's when somebody came up to me, we talked about what is your passion? Incorporate that every single day
Yeah,
if you can.
that passion question I think is so important. In fact, we just did a lunch and learn this week, and we were working with folks that are looking for new roles, and we were really
Sure.
going with what your zone of genius is and what's your passion.
I
Right?
love that.
Because if you can incorporate that into what you do, suddenly the tedious job that you like, oh, you can find that way of getting up and feeling a little bit better of, oh, at least I'm getting to do X, and this is what I love.
Yes. Yes. There's the perspective switch. There's the
Yeah,
yes. I love that. The zone, what did you call it?
the
The
zone
zone
of
of genius?
genius. Yep, there's a book, and I've
Okay. I won't steal that, but I'm going to
yeah,
tuck
there's
that in
a
the back of my
book,
mind.
and I can't recall the name of the author. If someone on my team's on the call, if they can put it in the chat, that'd be great. Yeah, it's just really understanding what do you love, and where do you feel best when when you're doing that, and how do you feel, and how do you do more of that? Because and then really knowing what drains your energy too, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, believe it or not, well, you wouldn't know, but I don't like details. I don't like running projects necessarily, but I'm good at it, right? So people are surprised,
Sure.
but it drains my energy. And so what I've
Yeah.
learned is I have to do it at a certain point of the day, to be able to, handle it and manage the best. So Carrie just jumped in. It's called the Big Leap for the Zone of Genius.
I
So,
love it. I love the
yep,
zone of genius.
absolutely. So, you talked about a couple of different chats that you have with teams. You talked about the PG3. What are some of the others?
Well, I use as far as
Yep.
working with teams
Yeah.
and advice for teams. So there are goals are a big one. And when I was very fortunate to lead a team, and there were some big goals at the end of the day, especially in business. You've got the bottom line, you got the ROI. We talk about all these and the metrics and everything. But first thing that we talk about, here's the goal. Let's make sure everybody understands the goal. Because it's like a game of telephone. Have you ever played the telephone
I
game?
do. Yep.
I'll tell you a goal, Kathy. Now you tell Carrie the goal, and it gets down to the last person, and the goal is totally different than when we started. So it's making sure that we're all singing off the same song sheet. I'd say we got to make sure we're all singing the same song, because once we establish that goal, then it makes it a lot easier to put tasks in place to chip away at that monster of a goal sometimes. But then it's my job as the leader. And when I was an individual contributor, it's my job to keep the leaders in task to what I'm doing. But then it's momentary or periodic milestones. Okay, let's check in after a week. Let's check in after a month. Let's check in after a quarter. And doing those because we don't, I'd rather have a surprise a week down the line or a day down the line versus 6 months down the line when the goal was not even close to being met. So whatever goal it is, whether it's monetary, whether it's chipping away at a certain metric, doesn't matter. It's establishing the understanding of the goal and then keeping everybody in communicado so we all know what's going on.
So again, we talk about like why we have those voices of leadership. You've just talked about the E3 leadership code, right? Being able to express that end vision. Where are we going? Why are we going? Right. And making sure everyone understands it. Then getting the buy-in of everyone on the team. We talked about the platinum rule, right? Now you got to communicate it. I'm sure you're a proponent of
Yeah.
communicating it probably 7 different ways and times. And then
Right.
execute,
Right.
right? It's great to have goals, but if you don't execute, why are we in business? So, thanks
Right.
for validating. It's great to hear how other people interpret it, right? And it is so true that we really need to make sure the goals are understood. I've had folks come to me and say, "Oh, so and so is not performing on the team." I'm like, "All right, well, what are they supposed to be doing?" Oh, well, they know that, they're a lawyer, they should know what they need to do. And I'm like, I get
Right.
that there's some basic understanding, but do they really know what your expectations are? Well, yeah, they should know. And I'm like, no, you can't assume because we both know what happens when you
Right.
assume, right?
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you left corporate. You're now doing these engagements and inspiring, enabling teams. What's some of the takeaways? What have you learned from this? What do you love? Where's your passion on all of this?
Well, first of all, I love your E3 model. I don't want to get off that because like you said, I love how other people's express what their passion is, and I can see the passion in your voice with and everything that you do. So I love that E3 model. Now, my takeaways and my passion going away from corporate is a switch in perspective. So as we all did, or we do, or whatever job you're in, we move up the ranks, hopefully, or at least we build a certain reputation of the quality work that we do. And I was very fortunate to be asked to um, do certain jobs throughout the country and speak certain places and motivate, and was a master trainer and so on and so forth. So I built up that reputation, and going out on my own, there's a lot of benefits. Now the silo of working for one company has been broken. Now I can help other companies and go really wherever I want to inspire and engage, but that reputation needs to be built up. So I had 20 plus years in the industry and so on. Now switching to on my own, that was a switch. It was a different perspective that I don't have that backing. Granted, I've been doing this for decades, but for somebody else, generally not necessarily on my own. So that was a change of perspective. So that was the surprise. But it doesn't matter the audience, it doesn't matter the venue, it doesn't matter the number of people, 500 to 500 plus. It's all about having a conversation and inspiration in a different level. And I don't know if you heard this in Reno, or if you'll forget what I say. But if I can make you
Mm.
feel a certain way, and if your leader can make you feel a certain way, you're going to remember how I made you feel. And somebody a year ago, I spoke somewhere a year ago, they came back to me, you were the one that had me up and clapping. You were the one. I remember that, but they don't remember what I said, but they remember how I made them feel. So that's in leadership, in jobs, whatever it happens to be, it's how you make somebody feel is going to make the impact. So I just love making an impact.
Yeah, and I remember for when we were in Reno, your talk was about the heartbeat and really getting up there. Now,
Yes.
in that scenario, we had 5 minutes, right? Do you remember that? Or like 5 minutes to get a point across, no words on a slide,
Yeah.
and you're just flying through it. So
Right.
yeah, you have to rely on
Yeah.
feeling at that point. And I walked away. I remember smiling and feeling better. And that's the feeling that you take away from it and why it's so important, you know. And
Right.
I love how you're focusing on inspiring and enabling people because so many times, we can't get anything done if people aren't on board with it. You can
Right.
have the best vision, right? But if
Right.
everyone's like, I don't believe in it. I don't care. I'm worried about all these other things. Or, and I love your PG3, right? Because do you know how many people tell me my boss doesn't appreciate me? You know, I
Sure.
I don't even know why I'm there. They're not positive, they're negative, and it drains people tremendously,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. We've all heard or maybe we haven't, but we sometimes we don't leave a job, we leave management, we leave a manager, right? Yeah, and it's too bad. And some people are good intended, maybe they just weren't given the opportunity to be a good manager and shown the right way to do it, or given the tools to be the best they can. And at some point, yeah, it's unfortunate, but
So
we're
I have a
always working on
question for you. I'm gonna put a little bit on the spot. I think you and I are naturally extroverted. We have a lot of yellow energy, red energy for those that follow the
it.
Clarity
Right.
4D. Um, but there's a lot of folks that are more introverted, right? And have you found successful leaders that are introverted and can still show up being positive and inspiring and engaging with their teams?
Most definitely. And my definition of positivity is different than somebody else's. They don't have to be the game show host and the public speaker like Brian on stage and inspiring you and that type of thing. That's one type of positivity. That's one type of inspiration. But I've had leaders that I hold very dear to my heart that
Yeah.
were introverted, but their positivity on a one-on-one basis was still there. You can have a conversation. It doesn't have to be on stage. It doesn't have to be in a group of many people. If you're an introverted person, you can still share that positivity just in a different wavelength. If it's in a one-on-one conversation or if it's in a group, people understand your genuine positive approach. And one thing I did, I know we're probably short on time here, is and I don't get paid from Clifton Strengths, but uh, I do believe in finding out who is on your team. If you're a leader, and if you're not a leader, who's on your team? What is their strength? Because then you can approach them. Then you can empathize with them when it's not the way you would approach something. If positivity is my number one strength, and that's okay. You might be analytical, so now I know you're coming from a different place in perspective. You're not going to be the game show host. You're not going to be the public speaker. You're going to analyze things, but it still could be in a positive approach. Just knowing your team is
Yeah,
so key.
and you're absolutely right, and that's one of the things we do in our boot camp is we call it an E3 leadership profile, so that you do the
Love
discovery,
it.
what are your strengths? What's your non-negotiables? How do you like to communicate, right? Like, how do you show up? Some people want to be off on their own to work out a problem. I need to collaborate.
Right.
But there's no right or
Right.
wrong. It's important to just know yourself. And I typically say awareness is one of the number one superpowers, right? If you know yourself and you know others, you can better engage and communicate with others.
That's your emotional
Absolutely.
intelligence. That is right
Yeah,
there. Boom.
I
You're
agree.
hitting nail.
Brian, I know you and I could go on all day chatting about this stuff because we're so passionate about it. Um, where can people learn more about you if they would love to have you come and speak to their teams?
Well, if they're listening to us now, they're on LinkedIn, so that you can check me out on LinkedIn, or you can go to I'm on all the socials and Facebook and Instagram and so on, or just go to bryanelementi.com. That's probably
Perfect.
the easiest.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I
Thank
really
you. Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you to our audience for joining us. If you want to learn more about equals Y, definitely check out our site. We have a boot camp coming up where we will actually spend more time learning about the E3 leadership code, building your own E3 leadership profile, Clarity 4D, and how to drive change, especially in these uncertain times that we're in today. So, Brian, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
and
you.
have a great weekend.